Good morning, viewers. Good morning, Frontline subscribers. Good morning, the larger audience. Uh, we are coming to the most important debate that should engage us Indians. Bureaucratically, politically, what makes us an Indian anymore? If citizenship is one thing we took for granted, but apparently it can be determined by bureaucrats, by BLOs, by forms which are difficult for educated people like us to fill, let alone the masses of migrant workers who move from one town to the other. So we are living in a time when the whole idea of citizenship is being challenged, the nation is being redesigned in a way to determine who are the worthy citizens and who are not. Possibly. We have an absolutely outstanding panel to discuss this with you. We have the political scientist par excellence, Suhas Palshikar, who has been analyzing politics and elections for years and years. We have Yamini Aiyar, a policy specialist. Absolutely, she's going to give me the answer to that. That are we deliberately creating a lot of non-citizens so that we don't have to give them any welfare schemes? I have that in my mind, whether it's part of a larger economic conspiracy, let alone the political one. So I'm going to get to her after I start with Suhasa. And then we have Adil, who is a political anthropologist, and he is from Bengal, and he lost his vote. He lost his voting right. And he has declared that he's going to study the issue of citizenship. And when I get to him, we're going to talk about what actually went down with him and his family in Bengal and what is happening over there. So these are the issues we are going to debate in the next hour or so. And so, Sir, I'm starting with you. Is there anything to explain what is happening in India? And is there anything parallel to this in the world that we know of?
What is happening in India today is, even by India's own assurances and standards, something extraordinary. But even otherwise, we know that United States is facing an issue about the question of who is a citizen. What is happening in India, however, is special because it is the cunning of the state at which we are relying for our citizenship. As you mentioned in your introduction, it is about the bureaucracy, it is about the political atmosphere, it is about the authority of the state that we are depending our citizenship on these pillars. And that is probably a very restrictive and dangerous situation which we are facing currently. In a sense, what we are facing is a situation of exclusion, a situation whereby every citizen, for that matter, all of us, are under suspicion. And for any state, that is a very risky proposition to suspect all its citizens, all members, all taxpayers, all voters, everyone practically is actually under suspicion. And you mentioned the case of Adil, and I thought that we should have actually begun with Adil because not only he is an expert on the question of citizenship, but someone who has faced it firsthand. And if people like us, so to say, face situations like this, one can only imagine what would be the plight of billions of ordinary citizens in a country. So, in a sense, this exclusion is designed against the poor and the marginalized. But in a broader sense, as I said, every one of us is potentially suspect as far as our citizenship is concerned. And that is, I think, perhaps a situation which we are facing currently.
So I'm going to take the lead from you because and I'm going to ask Adil, uh, and I'll get to Yamini later. Adil, please tell us what happened with you in Bengal. Just just the bare facts, and then what are you going to? How are you facing this challenge now?
So when the SIR process began in November, when the mapping exercise was done by the local booth level officer. So at the time, we all filled our forms. My parents, my sister, and me, we all filled our forms. And after that, in January, it was told that me and my sister are under adjudication due to name mismatch. That was the cause was given to both of us. And at the time, me and my sister both have passport, both have school leaving certificates, admit card, whatever the Supreme Court decided in the ADR versus ECI case. And we submitted the same document. And despite submitting the same document, my parents were, of course, mapped voters in 2002 list. My grandfathers are in the previous list from both sides, maternal and paternal. And also, as I said, that in the under adjudication process, I flew from Bangalore. I traveled by general compartment to know how the migrant workers were coming. So I was with them. Millions of such migrant workers returned from Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Gurgaon, everywhere. I traveled with them. As I said, flew with them, and at the same time, I saw that how people were returning, losing their all their life savings, reaching to the booth level officers in January. And we submitted document. People submitted their documents, and it was quite random that my sister got included, my parents got included, but I was deleted from the electoral roll. So in April, when I returned during the voting in West Bengal elections, at the time, my parents and my sister could vote, go to the polling booth. I was standing outside with many others. And in this case, as I said, that most of the mapped voters were Muslims, but most of the deleted voters who basically flagged as under adjudications were also Muslims. So in my booth, if there are like 900 voters, logical discrepancy, and then deleted were possibly 90% Muslims, and 3 or 4 are possibly non-Muslim voters in that case. So that how I have seen how that has happened. After that, I have filed immediately after the election results in West Bengal government issued some notices that directly linked welfare schemes, cancellation of OBC certificates. So I filed a PIL in Calcutta High Court. Uh, I have not filed any writ petition regarding my deletion from the SIR, but I filed a PIL regarding that how can, like, if SIR in the ADR versus ECI case, the Supreme Court decided is not determinant of citizenship, then how can social welfare schemes can be stopped for them? In the later notices, like Annapurna Vandar and few other social welfare notices, West Bengal government, however, said that if you have filed a tribunal, like me and 2.7 million people who have filed the cases in Calcutta, or other schemes, but it is not for the OBC case. That's why the case is going on in Calcutta High Court.
My God. So it's a complicated case. Just to clarify, Adil, can you tell us the place where this happened in Bengal? Just so we understand, this is not Calcutta. This is where exactly in Bengal is this happening to you and your family? Okay, I think the internet connection, I seem to have lost Adil right now. So we'll get back to him. Yamini, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. We got a sort of, I think it just hung for a bit. Yamini, tell me one thing. Is this possibly being done? And I'm seeing a giant conspiracy here that you delete so many people. I'm going out of the Muslim angle. Of course, they're deleting Muslims, which Adil has explicitly told us. What if, because this free ration became an issue some years ago, the government has been giving free ration, there must be huge bills. Maybe they just want to delete people who don't have the capacity to fight back and who cannot then express their dissatisfaction. They don't get welfare schemes, but they cannot even vote against you for not getting any welfare schemes. Is could that is that possibly also what it's about? So that's my question to you.
So, Saba, the short answer to your question is yes, absolutely. I mean, there's you just have to see what's happening, and you know exactly where this is going. But let me nuance it to say two things. As you rightly said, the SIR process is very much about the Muslim issue. But how have we achieved this? You said in the beginning that there is a very, and Professor Palshikar also mentioned this. The beauty of the SIR is how effectively it has deployed bureaucratic tools, routine, normal, everyday bureaucratic tools towards a project of systematically casting one category of citizens under suspicion. How did this happen? And it links very much also to the welfare question that I'll talk about in a minute. All bureaucracies, the state, by and large, from centuries, ever since the census process has begun, has always sought ways of seeing people, categorizing people into different categories to from an administrative point of view. The Indian state in particular has been very obsessed with the idea when it comes to welfare delivery, which, remember, has never been, even in our constitutional project, never been seen as a universal right. It took civil society mobilization in the 1990s and 2000s for the expansion of socio-economic rights to become constitutionally legitimate in our country. Welfare rights, socio-economic rights in the constitution were placed firmly in the directive principles, and largely until the 1990s, treated very much as kind of patronage and charity that the benevolent state will offer whenever it chooses to. And within the bureaucratic architecture, our approach has always been to figure out who is eligible and who is ineligible. Think about what justified the Aadhaar story in India. Even the Supreme Court Puttaswamy judgment, it essentially says, in order to ensure that the eligible beneficiary is identified and we get rid of all the corrupt ghosts and fake names, we bring in this digitized tool to ensure that through biometrics, etc., the right person gets the right benefit. What the SIR has done is it's taken this idea of eligibility and done a few more things with it. When we got obsessed with eligibility, the bureaucracy also turned around and said, all these documents that we give you, we can cast suspicion on them because the state is corrupt and people are complicit in the corruption of the state. So job card, diya, passport now has become an issue. But in the everyday life of all the papers, the documents that the average citizen desperately holds on to, because that's the means through which I enter the system. Why did everybody get an Aadhaar? If I don't get an Aadhaar, I don't have access to the state and all the rights that the state has to deliver to me. And this was tried out very effectively in the NRC. State is saying, I'm going to verify every single document that, by the way, I gave you, and I will decide whether the quality of your document is appropriate. So what is happening? State is saying, I gave you an Aadhaar that said Yamini Aiyar spelled Aiyar. I gave you an EPIC number that said Yamini Aiyar spelled Iyer. Because the state is incompetent in how it operates, now I'm going to take both my documents and cast you into suspicion. And because we are now a vast digitized territory, and algorithms and digital technology has been sold to the population as the most important means through which we can curb the corrupt practices of the state, so we all accept it. I am now going to use these algorithms to define whether or not these you are in and you are eligible or you are not eligible. SIR has taken exactly this idea and said, I'm going to do exactly this to cast doubt on your citizenship. How did SIR work in West Bengal within the polarization story of what it did in the election? It just casted doubt. It said you might be suspicious. So it became normal to think about the Muslim as the Ghuspetia. Because as a Hindu, my documents are also being scrutinized. But because I'm not coming in from the outside, I can very easily claim that the Muslim is coming in from the outside. He or she is a Ghuspetia. And so it immediately polarizes the narrative. This is now being extended into the domain of welfare. It's not unusual for welfare that there's suspicious documentation and constantly having to prove your eligibility. It's part and parcel of the everyday life of people. Now we are saying that proving of your eligibility is intertwined with your having to prove your citizenship. And I, as a state, will consistently decide which of the various documents I've given you is suspicious and non-suspicious for you to be in the system. The reason this is so tempting, of course, is because welfare has been expanded in a large way. It hasn't been expanded in these last 10 years, particularly in the grammar of rights. So, what was really important about the grammar of rights? Why did civil society?
Okay. Now I think Yamini has disappeared from our feed. We seem to have a yo-yo with internet. She's gone and she was in full flow. Adil, you're back. I was asking
Yes.
you, can you tell me exactly where in Bengal this happened with you? Yamini, sorry you went, I picked up with
So
Yeah,
Adil.
no, no,
I'm
no. Sorry. We'll get back to the welfare questions. So go ahead.
no, I'm from a small village called Chakulia. This is Assembly constituency number 31 in Uttar Dinajpur district in West Bengal.
Uttar
So
Dinajpur.
I did my
Okay.
school. Yes. So, yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. I just wanted to get the geography correct for our audience and for our
Yes.
viewers that this is
I'm a
not a
registered.
gangster.
I was a registered voter there. Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. And so yeah, so what is the so in Bengal they've taken away, to revert to what you're saying, is because I've also once wrote a column, I examined this issue that the backward caste, because Bengal has this extraordinary situation where you have less reservation than is entitled to states, and then that the backward castes actually make up those communities who happen to be Muslims, and they have very viciously taken that away now. And that was already, there was a systemic problem. That case was being fought in the Supreme Court, and based on that I had written it. What is also interesting, even in Bihar and all, you have categories of Muslims all over India who are categorized as backward castes. So Bengal is facing a double, triple whammy over there. Can you just tell us now, with so many exclusions, what is the state of mind for the community and for people in Bengal who have been? What is the state of mind? What is happening over there?
So you are right that most of the excluded are actually from backward caste, and right now, as you know, the OBC case in West Bengal that I have written quite a lot on in Quint, especially the issue that most of the Bengali Muslims are, and Partha Chatterjee also wrote about this in a Anand Bazar Patrika column. We are mostly either what we call the Arzal or basically who are mostly from the peasant caste. I am myself from a caste called Nosho Sheikh, which is OBC community. Still, I'm still OBC within the latest notification of the government. West Bengal government's notification that they basically reduced the reservation from 17% to 7% now. And you can see there is no popular mobilization against this reduction of OBC percentage as well. So I'm not going to divert the question, but yeah, most of the deleted Muslims in the SIR are from these actually what I can call Bahujan caste or backward Muslim caste. And there is very little mobilization. You will find very little conversation about the OBC in Rahul Gandhi speeches, who is of course mobilizing the backward caste or OBC. But same time that is there. And along with that, right now, if you want to ask what is happening in West Bengal, yes, there is absolute panic. Right now, people who have got deleted, there is problem with regard to sale of land. There is problem regarding most of the Muslim women are facing the biggest obstacle, especially if their partner or husbands are dying. They can't claim compensation in case migrant workers, they are registered in some cases of migrant workers, those insurances. In other forms of compensation, so women are basically getting excluded. Of course, all the welfare schemes like Annapurna Bhandar and other things, despite saying that the government issued the notification that if you have filed a tribunal, you will be considered. But the process of the local bureaucracy is absolute harassment with regard to that. People, sometime in cases, they are saying that their salary may get stopped. Of course, the OBC is another issue that if you are deleted from the SIR, so people can't get admission into PhD in some cases, fellowships. So even within the middle class Muslim, which is very little, that emerged within the last, I think, 10 years, absolute panic. People are filing cases for early hearing in Calcutta High Court. I have not done so, but many other I know personal friends who are filing cases in Calcutta High Court. Calcutta High Court is inundated with cases. They're saying before October we can't give you dates, or before November we can't give you dates. And even if Calcutta High Court is saying, or Supreme Court, some fortunate people or privileged people filing a case in Supreme Court, and they are saying that, give a early hearing in the tribunal. Tribunal doesn't have any infrastructure. Among 20 judges, 2 judges have resigned. 18 judges are listening 50, 60 cases a day. And tribunals, even though they have a court order of early hearing, tribunal are saying that, okay, we don't have infrastructure to send notices. And in some cases, as you can see, people's cases are just pending and they just don't know. And one justice already said that it will take 21 years to clear. Justice Kaushik Chanda, at the same time deciding that citizenship test is must before clearing the passport re-verification. So it has been the mess, I believe, more than election commission. I believe the mess has been created by the judiciary, and especially the Supreme Court of India.
Yes, I would tend to agree with you. Just for the audiences out there and the viewers out there, I want to also, in most people just understand what is happening in Bengal through the prism of Muslims. I think it's also important to understand that the entire reservation is threatened because everywhere people take it for granted that if you're backward caste, so understand Bengal's population, know the history, those who cleared the land, those who converted to Islam, it is them, they were the Muslims, which is why Bengal also has these traditions like Bon Bibi and things like that, because they were the people who were clearing the land. And they were that's why Bengali Muslims are found in the countryside. And so there is both reservation is being taken away and their Muslim identity. It's a double whammy right now, and it's a huge crisis of citizenship.
Yes.
And we get back and let's bring in with all this conversation, Suhas sir, how where have we landed up? And I know it's not a good space, but is there anything with the judiciary speaking from a pedestal and uh, what can we do? We are converting entire swaths of populations, and of course, the most extreme cases in Bengal, in my view. And let me say, this is someone from Uttar Pradesh, where there is a lot of hostility towards Muslim, but so far, let me also reveal this: Muslims were not excluded from whatever welfare they could sign up for. Bengal is going to put the template higher, like Assam did. Now Bengal is doing that. It's taking away reservation. Now let's see if they do that in Uttar Pradesh. Bihar, I remember sitting with Nitish Kumar at one point, and he showed me when he was an active chief minister the amount of Muslims who were in the various categories of reservation. You know, and but now it's like an infection which is spreading and it's just escalating. So, sir, how do we understand all this? How do we look ahead? What can we do? I've asked you many questions, but I'm just looking for a path, some
Sure.
answers
No,
here. Yeah.
no, but quickly there are 2 points of departure, but the most recent one is the Supreme Court ruling in the Bihar SIR case, which authorized the Election Commission to undertake SIR. In doing that, the Supreme Court has done 3 things. One is that it has, in a sense, believed and trusted benignness of the Election Commission, that the Election Commission, like a constitutional authority, will not exclude people. In doing that, the Supreme Court actually abdicated its own powers of regulating what the other authorities are doing, or the other organs of the state are doing. The second thing the Supreme Court does in that ruling is that it ignores the possibility that there is an exclusion happening around through the SIR. The basic principle of any representation is its ability to include all citizens as stakeholders, whereas SIR tends to deliberately authorize the state and its authorities to exclude people on the grounds of suspicion. But most notoriously, the third thing that the Supreme Court ruling does is it allows the Election Commission to write to the Ministry of Home Affairs saying that these are suspicious, let us say, characters. These are suspicious people, check their citizenship. In this last section of the ruling, the Supreme Court first says that yes, it is true that election commission is not supposed to check citizenship. Then it says, but it can do it for a limited purpose. And then it says, election commission therefore can go to the Ministry of Home Affairs and tell them to check citizenship. Some people think that this was a kind of protection. I think that this is actually the most weird part of the ruling, that an authority which does not have the power to check citizenship can write to the Ministry of Home Affairs saying check citizenship of these people. So these thousands of people who will be deleted from the SIR will suddenly become not only suspicious but subject to checks by Ministry of Home Affairs. So this is the most recent point of departure, which is very difficult to understand why a Supreme Court, why the judiciary should abdicate its power to regulate and ensure inclusion of citizens. But the larger question, since we are also talking about this question of exclusion of Muslims in particular and harassment of marginalized sections more generally, let me take you back quickly to 1955 when the Citizenship Act was passed. At that time, the Home Minister, in order to, in a sense, assuage people who were thinking that there should be stricter rules for citizenship, said that we are living in the dream of a civilized world. And in that civilized world, he says that we have taken a cosmopolitan view. In a sense, he was referring to the idea of giving citizenship by birth. Everyone who is born in India is entitled to be a citizen of India. So these are the words. We have taken a cosmopolitan view. Move on to 1987, when the Citizenship Amendment was made in 1987. And what does the then Minister for State or for Home Affairs says? He says that time has come to tighten our citizenship laws. We cannot be generous at the cost of our people. Who are these our people? I don't know. But in retrospect, this was the first step when we as a nation agreed to exclude rather than include. We as a nation agreed that citizenship by birth is not important and you have to detect blood relation as basis of your citizenship. Then comes the 2003 Act, and finally comes the latest Citizenship Amendment Act. So we have moved away from 1955, and therefore I think that the second point of departure for this mess that we are facing today is the 1987 amendment that we agreed upon.
That's so fascinating. I mean, I was not aware of all of these stages through which we've gone through, because it puts the onus back that those who created the state in a pre-BJP era, they also tended to look suspiciously upon the people who constituted the masses. And it goes back to
Therefore, it's a question of weaponization. That weaponization has its roots long ago. Now the weaponization is in full swing. Sorry.
That's really like a fascinating weaponization. And yes, so how do we go about birth? Being born in India does not make me a citizen, apparently. So it's an absolute one of those Kafkaesque situations. Ki you can be born here, you can live. So who am I going to be? And now I cannot even get a passport. So it's not as if I can migrate. Hypothetically, let's presume that Adil is already Adil. Do you think your passport renewal would face a problem since you're not on the SIR?
I mean, if something can happen to Mr. Rajagopal, I think I'm nobody. So in that case, I believe that yes, it can of course happen. And a lot of people, I know a lot of people who are working as migrant workers in the Middle East or in other parts of the country. They are returning, panicking. They are calling their lawyers. In some cases, people who possibly got a job, they can't move because passport verification right now. Of course, for Mr. Rajagopal, the Kerala CM wrote to the West Bengal CM, and then the passport got clear. But for I think thousands of people, the passport verification is not happening right now. Police is not giving the clearance, and they are in a limbo. And even courts are not helping in that sense. The high courts are, as I said, that They are not giving dates for early hearing, and even after high courts are saying that, give an early hearing in the tribunal, the tribunals are not in a they don't have infrastructure to listen the cases. They have only cleared 30,000. Before election, they cleared 1,067, and till now, it is almost July. They have cleared only, I think, 30,000, and 27 lakh cases are pending, and they are imagining that may take 21 years. So, what will
No, no,
happen to these
absolutely.
people? So
It's a nightmare.
first you take the political rights, and then in sociology we have read the the citizenship. What actually citizenship? The first political rights gone, and then now I think social rights and possibly the civil rights. It is an incremental loss of rights that is what we are witnessing at the moment. Just for this particular decision that was aided by Supreme Court of India, where the justice very casually said that they can vote next time, without understanding that it's just not vote. Other things are associated with this.
I think the role of the Supreme Court is again being flagged, as you said, voting next time, the justice said, and as Suhas sir pointed out, that bringing the Home Ministry in, that the Election Commission can bring the whole Home Ministry in, it all becomes a sort of big brother enterprise. We are going to scan all these people. I want to get back to Yamini. Yamini, I still want to understand about deliveries, the bill that the government has built up. Are they, besides getting rid of as many Muslims as is possible, as citizens, as people who cannot have rights, uh, are they trying to cut short their welfare bill? So that because all the poor, because not all Muslims, what about the, I know because I've been helping some, because I have had a long association with some people who have been from Jharkhand, Adivasi Mundas, who have worked in my home and who have struggled with their various documentation. I mean, this whole, this conversation is not about that, but digitization is great. It's lovely. You can talk to your village and you can hear songs of you can hear everything. But when it comes to banking, when it comes to KYC, it's a nightmare. And I remember Jean Drez has flagged it repeatedly. It's a nightmare for people, and now they are going to be subjected to these kind of things, and you've got to get people to do it for you. So what is happening is there are interest groups, parties who get it done, political parties. That's what's happening on the ground here. In my area in Delhi, because I don't live in a gated or a posh community. I live in a community which has a slum on one side, and it's an organized system to put some people in and some people out. Some are being helped and some will not be helped, and some have to figure it out. But so, as you know, we are in the middle of SIR right now, as are you. And my parents, they don't have their 2002 details. They don't remember where they were in 2002. So where they voted. They remember where they were, but they don't have a memory of where they voted. So we're in a sort of crazy situation. I'm just get back to reducing the bill of the ration. Is that also
So,
part of the design?
absolutely. So, if you look at the Supreme Court judgment on the Bihar SIR, it very clearly says that the Election Commission's remit to assess citizenship is a limited remit. It can, so as Professor Palshikar said, it can forward suspicion to the Home Ministry, etc. But it is limited in that it is about your being on the electoral roll and should not have any repercussions on other rights. Yet, state after state, so West Bengal began with it, Bihar followed up from latest reports about 5 lakh ration cards are being deleted from the ration rolls, from the PDS rolls in Bihar. If you listen to what DK Shiv Kumar has said or what Bhagwat Mann has said in the two Punjab and Karnataka where the SIR process is rolling out, they've kind of issued warnings: protect your voting rights, otherwise it will affect your ability to access other schemes, the Gruhalakshmi scheme, etc. in Karnataka. So very clearly, politically, this link is being made, and neither the Supreme Court nor the Calcutta High Court have taken it upon themselves, despite PILs, to adjudicate on this matter. Why is this link coming together? Well, we know that over the last, certainly after 2019, this expansion of cash transfers and ration has been very much part and parcel of the electoral political story. If you look at how welfare is being delivered, it is very much being treated as a gift or guarantee that is being offered by the party leader. In work with political scientist Nilanjan Sirkar, we call this techno-patrimonial welfare. This isn't welfare about rights. It doesn't use the language of rights at all. It says ye Modi ki guarantee hai or ye Mamta ki guarantee hai. Even the midday meal eggs now, if they could, they would put a stamp of the party leader on it. It is being deployed as a means of establishing a very emotive connect between the party leadership, and all chief ministers are indulging in this and voting. And in voter perception data, you can see a correlation between who you attribute the welfare benefit to and your voting choices. So it has become electorally extremely tantalizing to announce these large programs. And once in power, chief ministers are starting to worry about the fiscal consequences. Now, there are two aspects of this. One is just a profligacy of the of the state governments themselves announcing this. Both BJP and non-BJP governments are doing this in the run-up to the elections, and then without actually thinking through the fiscal implications, choosing not to prioritize this over other kinds of expenditures where corruption and rents probably benefit you politically more, and then seeking ways to weed out the ineligible. Remember, welfare in India has always been, as I said earlier, bureaucratically structured into this framework of eligible and ineligible. So one way of doing it is to use the algorithm to knock people out and leave the, as Jean has been pointing out, Rajendra Narayanan and others, using the algorithm as a means to keep the beneficiary consistently chasing, because your name on one card is spelled with an A, your name on the other card is spelled with the E, the algorithm knocks you out. And because delivery has become so centralized with technology, its beauty is that it weeds out corruption because there are fewer people involved. It's a trade-off is that you centralize welfare delivery. So whether the panchayat or the block office, they don't have the capacity to put you back on the list if the algorithm knocks you out. You have to consistently go from bank to bank, from office to office to prove your eligibility to get into the system. So this is one way. But an equally powerful way is what SIR offers. The minute the SIR is casting suspicion and removing you from your voting rights, you can then very effectively politically use this, because you're not actually knocking somebody off on criteria of not being eligible. You're knocking people off on criteria of being suspicious, not from the state, not from this country. Your citizenship is suspicious. So you cast in the minds of voters too a kind of legitimization of moving people out of the list. After all, it's a very legitimate thing to say that welfare benefits that are being provided through taxpayers' resources of this country should be given to those who are members of the political community of this country. It's why you could make that argument and legitimize it that way. So the political cost, therefore, for these for removing people reduces a little bit when you place it within this broader case of welfare being linked to citizenship. And that's the tool that the SIR has given. So it is absolutely, to answer your question, very much linked to fiscal concerns. These fiscal concerns have come about due to a narrowing of our imagination of welfare. We don't see this as a socio-economic right. We have always struggled with this question of whether welfare rights are core to the fundamental rights of citizens. We had a brief period of about 2 decades where the expansion of rights was part of the discourse, but it was very limited to the elite discourse. It didn't become robust or get embedded in people's minds. Technology legitimizes many things because technology can be used, and we
Now,
are
yeah,
told as technology is meant for, can you hear me?
yeah,
Yeah, technology allows you to get rid of the corrupt, so we all accept it. But the dark side of technology is that it can also be used to cast suspicion and doubt and make you ineligible on varied criteria. Making you ineligible on citizenship criteria has a lower political cost, and so it is being embraced by our by everyone. You had asked a question to Professor Palshikar. I'll just take half a second on what can be done. I really think on the welfare front, the most important thing that we need to do is to reiterate the importance of welfare as a socio-economic right of all people who belong to the political community of India, and ensure that this gift welfare as gift giving and guarantees of individual political leaders, the framing that is used now, is broken down. Because until we don't do that, this kind of discretionary deployment of all kinds of tools to knock people out when it's fiscally going to be a bit complicated is going to continue to happen. And the union government, by the way, as we can see if you look closely at budget data, has increasingly reduced its welfare bill, leaving the burden of paying for all these cash transfers, etc., very much on states. NREGA becoming VB Gram G has meant that 90-10, where center would hold on to the bulk of the money, has been shifted to a 60-40 ratio, where states have to put in a lot more. So the union's abdication is also adding to the fiscal challenge that states are having, which is leading them to do all these things. And what this union is also doing through cesses and surcharges is reducing the devolution of resources, tax resources, to states. So states' resources are being squeezed by the union government. States themselves are politically tempted to announce these large schemes before elections, but then have to deal with its fiscal consequences. And the SIR has played straight into that playbook, making it easy for chief ministers to do what they're doing.
So thanks, Yamini, but I don't think that'll happen. I mean, people are not going to give up on welfareism. We've got a whole category of voters now. We term it. The last analysis of the Uttar Pradesh election was that it was those who benefited who voted for the Bharatiya Janata Party, and we are headed to another election next year. So that's not going to change, but people will be excluded. That is very clear. I want to get to Mr. Sir Suhas Sir Palshikar Sir in the middle of all of this. So now our Aadhaar is not going to be good enough. Our old voter ID is not going to be good enough. Our passport is not a sign of citizenship. What can be done for this? I don't know if you are online, sir. Yeah.
Yes, I'm very much here, but I don't think I have any ready-made answer to the question because to go back to what Adil was saying, currently there seems to be among those who are adversely affected a sense of panic. So rather than bringing political pressure on the government, there seems to be an effort on the part of the affected to somehow escape from this situation. And therefore, there is no political agenda currently which is actually located in this question of either rights, welfare, or even the simple question of identity. And that's one. The second question answer is what Professor Yamini Aiyar was saying. The electoral cost of this entire complication seems to be very limited. We have seen again and again, starting from Bihar to latest in West Bengal, that there is no political cost to it because this entire complication is very adroitly at a subtext level and sometimes very openly connected to a communal polarization of the situation. And therefore, it is very easy for the political parties involved to legitimize exclusions rather than to mobilize people who are excluded. That's the second reason. But the third thing, and that is where I think the entire matter might probably explode, is that while it is true that this seems to be a specially designed, let's say, work or specially designed strategy to maybe create suspicion among people towards a certain community, if you move a little step further, you will find that besides Muslims, this is going to and is affecting a very large number of poor, marginalized, and Adivasis. And as Adil was pointing out, in the case of caste certificates, even the other backward classes or OBCs. Then, if you step a little further, still you will find, and the Rajagopal case actually testifies to it, that one day or the other, this suspicion of the state is going to knock at your doors also. the so-called cozy, comfortable middle classes of this country, who think that this government is only harassing the poor in order to make sure that they are eligible or ineligible for welfare, they will find one day that this is going to actually trouble everyone. This knock of the state, this knock of suspicion, as I call it, is something that no one of us can escape very easily. Go back again to the 2019 debate on NRC, and you will recall that even in NRC, the point was about D. Like in Assam, there are D voters. NRC had provided that at the Tehsildar level and even below that, an official can put a mark of D in front of your name, and that would make you a doubtful citizen. Not just voter, but doubtful citizen. That was the provision in NRC. What the SIR is doing is actually bringing it back by the back door unostentatiously. And while we are debating whether this would affect only the Muslims or only the poor, it is actually going to affect potentially anyone in this country. And that's why you will recall I started by saying that suddenly all the so-called number of billion citizens of this country have been put under suspicion by this simple act on the part of the election commission of instituting SIR in the way it is instituted, and by the Supreme Court by ratifying it and approving it. I don't know what is the way out, because this country and citizens of this country have again and again showed patience, again and again showed that escape routes which are not of legal variety are much better than political mobilization. So, political mobilization is always counterweighed, counterbalanced by citizens' effort to escape individual harassment. When that individual harassment actually becomes a collective harassment, probably this would explode into an issue.
We've got a few questions that audiences have. I'm just going through it. This is one. Satish Subramani asks, how different is it from the US government passing ordinance on naturalized American citizens?
Sabha, we can't hear you, I think.
Can you can read it? No? I'm just trying to figure it out. So there is a question about comparing this to the US situation, where there has been the question is up here. Why is it not in the 12th Amendment? So could we get an answer?
Hello, Sabha, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Okay, I was just wondering if we could get an answer to some of the audience questions. Some of them are, anyway, some of them are rude, some of them are offensive, some of them are just simple questions. Just a comparison with the US, I think, is the question which I would address to any of the panelists who can answer that. How are we different from what is the US has birthright? The court there has just upheld birthright citizenship, something which we don't have. So I think the struggle for citizenship, in sense, is it harder in India? Yes, there is a problem for those who in the US right now. If you've come in from a border, and there is a problem, ICE is acting brutally. But Yamini, you're also in a university there. You have so can you just explain the differences? Where is the situation more grave for people who are facing this kind of problem?
So one very quick way of thinking about this is the Supreme Court. I mean, the one very fundamental. So there is this discourse on citizenship, and this attempt to remake citizenship is not limited to India. It is happening in different democracies across the world. Every democracy today, I think, is going through its own version of unhappiness, but it's unhappy in different ways. And so there are similarities and differences in the debates. But the very big difference between India and the US, at least least for the moment, is that the extent of institutional capture here, we cannot rely on the Supreme Court very often for the protection of our basic rights. I think the SIR and welfare is a very good example of this. There was a PIL in the Supreme Court. They were told to go to the Calcutta High Court. It's not been admitted there either. So the role of the courts in protecting fundamental rights, basic civic and political rights in India is, I would argue, weaker than the role of the courts in the United States. But there's another a very important thing to recognize. Constitutionally, as Professor Palshikar also said, and the political scientist Neerja Jayal has done some very important work looking clinically at the nature of Indian citizenship. Constitutionally, Indian citizenship was just solely, it was designed to ensure that anyone that is born on Indian soil is of Indian citizenship. But consistently over the decades, and most pronounced this began with the Assam Accord in the mid 1980s, we introduced categories into this idea. And one very critical category of this is the category of illegal migrants. So if you look at the 2004 amendment to the Citizenship Act in India, it says very clearly that you could be an Indian citizen if you're born on Indian soil only if both parents are legally Indian. So it kind of introduces the descent category much more formally. If you have one parent that is quote unquote an illegal migrant, then you are not a citizenship by virtue of being born on Indian soil. The US story of citizenship is birthright citizenship that is given to anybody born on US soil. It doesn't have these categorizations that India introduced into its Josoli definition of citizenship over the decades that brought in these categories of illegal migrants, etc. The second really important thing that we need to recognize that is different about Indian citizenship is that we have the Constitution, the Modern Nation project was forged against the backdrop of partition. Both on the western and eastern borders, we had the world's largest movement of people. And in the process of that movement of people, the question of of proving citizenship via documentary evidence became a very important thing. People moving from what is now Pakistan into Rajasthan, western parts of India, the border, Rajasthan, Gujarat, people moving from what is now Bangladesh into Assam and West Bengal. All of this created a more complicated relationship between documentation and proof of citizenship. And almost like the onus effect de facto was always placed on the citizen to use documents issued by the state to quote unquote prove their citizenship. What the NRC and the SIR is to my mind another version of the NRC effectively, is doing is that it is taking this and scaling it up to the country. That the onus of proof of citizenship now rests firmly on US citizens. That is not the nature of the discourse that is taking place in the US. The US is much more concerned about people coming from all over the world, migrants coming and acquiring US citizenship and living there, which is part and parcel of the white supremacist MAGA kind of argument. So the citizenship question is similar in both countries in some respects, but very, very different, coming from very, very different contexts, histories, and dynamics and movements of people.
I think, yeah, and the courts there certainly are are just more autonomous. They seem to be so far, some of the verdicts coming out of the US, just as from a distance it appears so to me. So the right now, how many of us have got our SIR? Adil is out. I am going to try and see what happens, but my parents can't locate it. Suhas sir, are you recorded as a? It's over in Maharashtra, right? You're all
No, it's going on. In Maharashtra, the process has just only begun.
okay.
So we, in a sense, wait for what is likely to happen. Yes.
But you have an idea of where you were in 2002. It would be
Oh,
quite an
yes, I
experience.
did. I did.
You don't. I don't remember. My parents don't remember where they voted. So it's an ironical situation, and it's a tragic
Oh, yes,
situation.
in a sense, in a country where you expect people to keep moving from one place to another, and we sometimes use this term migrants as if it were a kind of bad category. But migration, moving from one place to another for job or for various other reasons, is a quite natural social phenomenon that we must accept as a natural thing. Having accepted that as natural, then it is unnatural to expect everyone to remember where they were 20 years ago and whether their names existed in those lists or some other lists. So, if the election commission and we as a country wanted to do SIR systematically, we could have taken a hard look at this problem of how I can register as a voter, where I register as a voter, and how that can be sort of addressed. Without doing that, we are going in a ham-handed manner. That's the problem. So, I'm not saying it from my personal experience, like in the case of Adil. I am saying it more from these concerns that we have been discussing so far.
No, absolutely. It is. We were all citizens. We were all comfortable in that place at least. We had, all of us had our various issues in life. And now suddenly we all have to prove something that was ours to begin with. So it's a very Orwellian kind of a situation, and then you have 2 minute hate out of 1984 that comes out through TV. You have the 2 minute hate, you have this surveillance state, you have gadgets that we all carry, call them a phone, which is actually, people are happy to carry the phone, but this technology is also disempowering so many of them. And so it's a very odd time to be alive, because it is this logical discrepancy through which Adil lost out. I mean, I'm not going to reveal who, but somebody very close to me in one name is there's just a spelling error in the name, and they're worried about their passport renewal.
Yeah.
I don't
You
even
know,
want to say it out
this
because
acronym that the election commission itself has evolved actually sums up the situation best. Suspicious, absent, dead, doubtful, sad. It's a
ASDD,
sad,
yes.
sad,
And
sad, sad situation.
But if I may, I want to give you one quote from when we were in my colleagues and I were doing some work in West Bengal around the SIR, and we met a Hindu woman who was, and we were talking about the documents because I was particularly interested in the documentary aspect of this, and she said, she sums it up perfectly. She's like, a person will just die furnishing proof of their existence through documents, but more importantly, marne ke baad bhi we'll have to furnish documents to prove we are dead. I mean,
Yes.
that is the state of how documents and people, जनता सब कुछ जानती है. We feel it every single day. You and I perhaps less because we are less dependent on the state for, we don't need it for our ration, we don't need it for our cash transfers. We experience it occasionally. But for those who are dependent on the state in an everyday way, they have felt deeply the consequences of both constantly having to procure documents to prove your existence and your eligibility, but also consistently having to verify the documents that the state has given you, because whenever the state feels like it will become, your documents will be suspicious. And the difference, I just want to say one thing, this is a uniquely Indian bureaucratic issue which is now being weaponized. I was once in a discussion with Brazil on social protection, cash transfers. This eligibility issue in welfare is a very common concern across the board, right? And the bureaucrats from Brazil, their impetus was to say, we are concerned about ensuring that those who ought to be provided these cash transfers, in whose name these schemes have been announced and money is going, get in. We care little about the wrong people getting in, because if we only focus on the wrong people getting in, many of those who are deserving or so-called who should be beneficiaries get left out. It is just flipping it around. This is how the electoral rolls were built, as Ordnance Chani has so well documented back in the 1950s. It was an inclusionary impetus, not an exclusionary one. In our welfare, it's always been exclusionary, and now the SIR is deepening it to continue to be deeply exclusionary, locking you in this documentary Kafkaesque life.
give Suhas sir has given us, I think all of you have, Yamini, you're absolutely brilliant at this, but he's almost given us a historical, philosophical framework to understand what is going on. And Suhas sir, I would like to get the last words from you, but then I want to give Adil the
Yes.
last chance on this conversation. And because I think his story is the most significant right now. So I would like you to get some perspective from you as we come to the end of the hour. And then I want to give it to Adil and also, so Hassan, first you.
No, I think I have said enough, and I don't think I have now anything to add at this point of time. Let us hear Adil instead.
Okay, so in my case, I mean, as you can, what happened that all my life, from my admit card, school certificate, my passport, my other documents, voter ID card, everywhere the name was MD Adil Hossain. Now, when I went to renew my passport in 2020, the passport guy in Calcutta said, I will record you not as MD, but Muhammad Adil Hossain. It is a short form and we need for passport full form. And I believe that this logical discrepancy has happened because of this particular thing. That my passport, because I submitted my passport, so Muhammad Adil Hossain versus MD Adil Hossain. For this particular thing basically became the reason I believe that they just deleted me from the SIR. And these are the cases for millions in West Bengal where the name, how that was recorded for these bureaucracy, for this local level bureaucracy, that's where they are suffering. These are plain case of name mismatch. And Supreme Court has held that name mismatch can't be the reason. There was a case in Supreme Court also. Now, the question is that I'm very happy that Professor Palshikar and then Yamini both have pointed out the case that how we have moved from just soli to just sanguini, the right of the soil to right of the blood. And the biggest, I think, the cause for this that it was always imagined that it is only Assam. The Assam Accord is basically the reason for which possibly Saba has to find her ancestral linkage on the voter list today. Because it is the amendment to the Citizenship Act in 1987 and another amendment that happened during the Vajpayee era in 2003. And Congress, CPM, both were in power in from 2004 to 2014. They never thought that this kind of act can be weaponized. I will say very stupid of them to think. And then today the ruling parties effectively put the Assam Accord, for which today a person in Kerala is finding if their father or grandfather's name is in the 2002 list
Yeah.
or in other lists. So this is what is happening right now, and how these kinds of acts. And I believe today anyone who is deleted from SIR, I think especially who's going through this turmoil, they are what I can call they are contingent citizen. They are citizen not because of their legal status, but they are citizen uh, how the bureaucracy is defining at every step of their life.
Yeah, well, Adil, finally, I would just want to ask you, is there any sympathy? Is it, sadly, I want to ask you because Bengal, the common Bengali language, is there, is it just now divided that those who are in the voter list, those who are not Muslims, that they don't care?
I mean,
Is that what you're finding, huh?
there is, of course, a general apathy that I will not, I think, hide at the moment, and especially because of communal polarization is quite high. But we have to also see that a lot of people from scheduled tribes, people from scheduled castes, they are also deleted. But in our conversation, and Sabar Institute in Calcutta has pointed that out. And as I said, the conversation happening at the local level, at district level. There are Nagarik Adhikar Manch and others bringing out rallies and everything, but there is no popular political mobilization in that sense. In France, we have seen sans papier movement, other places, but there we are talking about undocumented migrants. Here we are talking about Indian citizens who have been somehow denationalized through a particular process. They have, as I said, understanding of local citizenship, where people, their neighbors know that historically they have always been here. Um, and I believe that media is also to blame in many ways, because this entire narrative of illegal migrants, where even established editors from big news media, they often talk about these illegal migrants without talking about census or NFHS data. of 2001 or 1991, they just randomly say, oh, this bureaucrat or this army officer said this, and that's like the truth of about illegal immigrants, without mentioning census or NFHS or other forms of data that is available with the Ministry of Health or Ministry of Home Affairs. That what was the number of these people in Malda, Murshidabad, or Uttar Dinajpur, or Siliguri. I'm not naming those editors, but very big editors have basically just quoted and put out those as truths. So, and it has impacted the poor people, and not only poor. As I said, right now it is going to affect everyone. It's going to affect. Professor Palshikar rightly said that this is at your doorstep now. Even Mr. Rajasekhar, or possibly tomorrow you, anyone has
Yeah.
to face what has happened now.
I think so too, because I definitely think as I'm winding it up, I definitely think that you have already faced it. I think there is much greater likelihood of someone with my name being excluded, because I also, it's going to come knocking on everyone's door, because as a friend of mine who's also a journalist, she doesn't seem to be bothered about the SIR. But then a caste Hindu person, who else would they be but Indian citizens? you know, so she doesn't seem to be in the state of panic, because I have not only tried to fix my own family's problems, I have also, because of my long linkage with Bundi Munda of Jharkhand, I am trying to get her vote transferred because she's retired. And I must say that the BLO has been good on that. That what can we do and all, on that issue. So now, so who else will you be? If you are a caste, you will end up being somewhere in the Indian system. But if you carry a certain Muslim name, even if you're educated, you would be, that the greater chances of deletion are there. And but I think the greatest, it's not even yours and mine story, Adil. We are people who tell the stories to the world. It is actually the workers
Yeah.
who cannot figure out those forms. And unless someone is assisting them, who are there? And so many of them, chalega, they're not understanding the implications, of what could be happening.
After
Uh, you know,
deletion, I myself visited a lot of villages next to my village where people didn't know how to file cases of tribunal, and because
yeah.
most of the these groups or NGOs are located in Calcutta or other places, in the villages like in Uttar Dinajpur or Malda, I was traveling myself and I was filing a lot of these tribunal cases to appeal against the SIR deletion in the tribunal. So this is, you are
Yeah,
very
yeah.
right that how they are doing it.
Yeah, yeah. So absolutely. So we come to the. I again want to give you, sir, Suhas, sir, the last word before you send us off. Before the front line, can I just get? I think
No,
he's.
thank you. It's a great panel in a sense. And it's not merely a question of anybody's first-hand information alone, but how we actually locate that information. And therefore, I think we have learned through the last 1 hour that there are many complicated attempts that are taking place. And while I myself talked more about the Supreme Court ruling, I think this welfare angle and therefore the larger question of how the question of citizenship rights gets convoluted because of this debate. To connect it to the larger title of the theme of the present panel, who is an Indian citizen suddenly becomes a question. Who is an Indian citizen suddenly becomes a question of suspicion. And that suspicion makes us all only tentative citizens. I think that is where we are landing up. And that's not a very good state of affairs for a country which boasts to be a democratic country.
I think those are that we have a great phrase. We are all tentative citizens, and as we move ahead. And thank you everyone for joining in, and thank you Yamini, thank you Suhas sir, thank you Adil, and let's see what lies ahead for all of us. And it's been a very informative for me. I've learned so much from all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. And thank you to Frontline for this important conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, Frontline. Yes, I forgot to thank Frontline. Most important. For having these kind of conversations on their platform, having these kind of articles on their platform. So, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.